Welcome to the CAD Office Training Guide video series for FDOT Connect. In this video series, I will be going through the Pond Design and Plans Development Training Guide. I will take you step by step through each exercise from the training guide. This video will feature Chapter 2, Stormwater Facilities Sheet. The objective of this video is to provide the viewer with a general understanding of the OpenRoads Designer technology that can be used for the basic plans production procedures in creating the Stormwater Facilities Sheet as per FDM 917. Topics that will be covered in this chapter include creating the Stormwater Facilities Detail Sheet, cutting pond sections, placement of a special detail, cutting control structure sections, placing a control structure form. Let's get started. Exercise 2.1. Create the Stormwater Facilities Detail Sheet. In order to create the Stormwater Facilities Detail Sheet, the drprrd00.dgn file will need to be referenced. Verify the workflow is OpenRoads modeling and the focus is on View 1. From the Home tab in the primary group, left-click on the Attach Tools icon to open the References Tool dialog. Using the References dialog, attach the drprrd00.dgn file in the drainage folder of the current project. Now turn off the view of the default 3D reference by selecting it in the list and left-clicking on the View button in the lower left corner of the dialog. Close the References dialog. Other drainage elements of this project will now be visible. Left-click on the Rotate View tool in the View Controls bar. Select the 2 points method in the Rotate View dialog box. For the first point, snap to the end of the minor tick mark nearest the station 704 of the roadway centerline alignment. Left-click to accept. For the second point, snap to the next minor tick mark and left-click to accept. The view will rotate to a more useful orientation for sheet creation. Go to the Drawing Production tab and in the Named Boundary group, left-click on the Named Boundary dropdown. Select the Place Named Boundary tool to open the Place Named Boundary dialog box. Choose the Civil Plan option and left-click on the Drawing Seed dropdown. Select 36 by 48 Plan Only option from the list. Now left-click on the Detail Scale dropdown and choose 1 inch equals 20 foot. Set the name field to Pond 1 and the description field to Pond Plan View. The group dropdown will automatically be set to New. Using the Tab key on the keyboard, tab down until the second name field is highlighted. Now select the roadway alignment element in View 1. The current name field will change to CL_SR61, the name of the roadway alignment. Using the Tab key, tab to the description field and type in Stormwater Facility Detail Sheet. Check both the Start Location and Stop Location check boxes. Set the Start Location field to 70400 and the Stop Location field to 70920. Set the length field to 520. The left offset field should be set to 0, and the right offset field should be set to 400. Set the overlap field to 0 and the boundary chords field to 5. Make sure the checkboxes for Create Drawing and Show Dialog are checked. Now, left-click an open space in View 1 to preview the boundary. Left-click again in open space to accept this boundary, and the Create Drawing dialog box will open. Make sure the Mode drop-down is set to Plan and the Name field is set to Pond 1. Verify the Drawing Seed drop-down and the Drawing Boundary drop-down both say 36 by 48 Plan Only. Finally, the Detail Scale drop-down should read 1 inch equals 20 feet by named boundary. With all of this set, left-click on the OK button to create the Pond 1 sheet views with a Pond 1 sheet model and the Pond 1 views with a Pond 1 design model. The program will now open the Pond 1 sheet view for review. Switch back to the Home tab and in the primary group, left-click on the Attach Tools icon to bring up the References dialog. In the References dialog, select the Pond 1 model and right-click on it to open the context menu. Choose the Move command from the menu and left-click in the middle of the proposed pond. Move the reference to the upper left corner of the sheet and left-click to accept the move. Close the References dialog and switch back to the Multi-Model views. Exercise 2.2 Cutting Pond Sections. Change the active workflow to the Drawing workflow and select the Home tab. In the Attributes group, left-click on the Active Level drop-down and choose Pattern Lines 1 underbar DP from the list. In order to make it easier to draw the pond section pattern lines, it will be necessary to draw a line starting at the center of the pond control shape and extending toward the bottom left of the screen at about a 45-degree angle. Start by left-clicking on the Placeline tool from the Placement group. Now type the letter C on the keyboard to set the snap mode to center. Put the cursor over the pond control shape line and there will be a yellow X with the symbol for center point snap next to it in the center of the pond control shape. Left-click to accept this as the start point for the temporary line. Move to the left and down, and then left-click to create the temporary line inside the boundary of the pond control shape. This temporary line will be the start point for all 4 of the pond section pattern lines. Snap to and left-click on the right end of the temporary line to start the first pattern line. Move the cursor up towards the roadway centerline element and hit the Enter key to lock the AccuDraw axis to vertical. Zoom into the area near the drainage structure labeled S205. Left-click just shy of the green back of sidewalk line to complete this pattern line. Zoom back out so that the whole proposed pond is in the view. Snap to and left-click on the right end of the temporary line to start the next pattern line. Left-click on the Snap Mode button at the bottom of the ORD window and choose the perpendicular snap mode. Hover over the diagonal proposed right-of-way line on the bottom side of the proposed pond area. There will be a yellow X with the symbol for perpendicular snap next to it along this line. Left-click to accept this snap point and the second pond section line will be complete. Snap to and left-click on the right end of the temporary line to start the next pattern line. Move to the left and hit the Enter key on the keyboard to lock the AccuDraw axis to horizontal. Move the cursor just past the vertical proposed right-of-way line and left-click to complete this pattern line. Snap to and left-click on the right end of the temporary line to start the final pattern line. Hover over the arc element that is in the right corner of the pond control shape until there is a yellow X at the midpoint of the arc. While the yellow X is visible, type R, then Q to rotate the AccuDraw compass and hit the Enter key on the keyboard to lock to this axis. Drag the cursor to the right so that it is near the green back of sidewalk line and left-click to complete the pattern line. Now that all the pattern lines have been drawn, go to the Modify group and left-click on the Delete Element tool. Left-click on the temporary line to delete it. In the Modify group, left-click on the drop-down in the upper right corner of the group and choose the Extend Line tool. On the Extend dialog, check both the Distance and From End checkboxes. Now change the distance field to 10. Left-click on the downward diagonal pattern line that ends at the proposed right-of-way line to extend it 10 feet and left-click in the Open to accept. Switch back to the Open Roads Modeling workflow. Switch to the Drawing Production tab and in the Named Boundaries group, left-click on the Named Boundary drop-down. Select the Place Named Boundary tool and the Place Named Boundary dialog box opens. Left-click on the Civil Cross-Section 2 Points tool. Left-click on the Drawing C drop-down and choose 11 by 17 cross-section detail. The Group drop-down should be New. Left-click on the vertical pattern line in View 1. The name field will change to Unnamed Cross-Section. Change the name field to Section A- and the description field to Pond Cross-Section. Vertical exaggeration field should be 2. Both top clearance and bottom clearance checkboxes should be checked and the fields should be set to 5. Elevation datum spacing field should be 2. Backwards facing checkbox should not be checked and the checkboxes for Create Drawing and Show Dialog should be checked. Snap to and left-click on the upper end of the vertical pattern line and then snap to and left-click on the lower end of the vertical pattern line. Now left-click in the open to accept the boundary. This will bring up the Create Drawing dialog box. Set the name field to Section A-. Set the Sheets drop-down to Pond 1 Sheet and left-click on the OK button to create the drawing. This will open the Pond 1 sheet model, and the newly created section will be visible near the center of the sheet. This section will need to be moved to the proper position on the sheet. Switch to the Home tab and left-click on the Attach Tools icon in the primary group. The References dialog will open. Find the section A- reference and select it. Left-click on the Move Reference tool. Snap to and left-click on the green existing ground line. Move the section to the lower corner of the sheet just below the pond plan view. Close the References dialog box and switch back to the multi-model view. Left-click on the Drawing Production tab, and in the Named Boundaries group, left-click on the Name Boundaries drop-down. Select the Place Name Boundary tool, and the Place Name Boundary dialog will open. Left-click on the lower diagonal pattern line in View 1. The name field will change to Unnamed Cross-Section. Change the name field to Section-A. This time, the backward-facing checkbox needs to be checked. All of the rest of the fields and checkboxes should be set properly from the last use of this tool. Snap to and left-click on the lower end of the diagonal pattern line, and snap to and left-click on the upper end of the diagonal pattern line. Now left-click in the Open to accept the boundary. This will bring up the Create Drawing dialog box. Set the name field to -A. Set the Sheets drop-down to Pond 1 Sheet and left-click the OK button to create the drawing. This will open the Pond 1 sheet model, and the newly created section will be visible near the middle of the sheet. Switch to the Home tab and left-click on the Attach Tools icon in the primary group. The References dialog will open. Find Section -A reference and select it. Left-click on the Move Reference tool. Snap to and left-click on the end of the pond bottom line. Now snap to and left-click on the end of the pond bottom line in the Section A- reference that is below the Pond 1 plane. The two sections should align to form a single pond cross-section. Close the Reference dialog box. Switch back to the multi-model view. Switch to the Drawing Production tab and in the Name Boundaries group, left-click on the Named Boundary drop-down. Select the Place Name Boundary tool, and the Place Name Boundary dialog box opens. Left-click on the left horizontal pattern line in View 1. The name field will change to Unnamed Cross-Section. Change the name field to Section B-. All of the rest of the fields should be set properly from the last use of this tool. Snap to and left-click on the left end of the horizontal pattern line. And snap to and left-click on the right end of the horizontal pattern line. Now left-click in the Open to accept the boundary. This will bring up the Create Drawing dialog box. Set the name field to B-. Set the Sheets drop-down to Plan 1 Sheet. And left-click on the OK button to create the drawing. This will open the Pond 1 Sheet model, and the newly created section will be visible near the middle of the sheet. Switch to the Home tab and left-click on the Attach Tools icon. The References dialog will open. Find the Section B- reference and select it. Left-click on the Move Reference tool. Snap to and left-click on the end of the green existing ground line. Move the section below the other two sections and try to align the leftmost side of it with the leftmost side of the section A-. Close the References dialog box. Switch back to the multi-model view. Switch to the Drawing Production tab, and in the Named Boundaries group, left-click on the Named Boundary drop-down. Select the Place Name Boundary tool, and the Place Name Boundary dialog box opens. Left-click on the right diagonal pattern line in View 1. The name field will change to Unnamed Cross-Section. Change the name field to Section-B. Uncheck the backwards-facing checkbox. All of the rest of the fields and checkboxes should be set properly from the last use of this tool. Snap to and left-click on the right end of the diagonal pattern line. Snap to and left-click on the left end of the diagonal pattern line. Now left-click in the Open to accept the boundary. This will bring up the Create Drawing dialog box. Set the name field to Section-B. Set the Sheets drop-down to Pond 1 Sheet, and left-click on the OK button to create the drawing. This will open the Pond 1 sheet model, and the newly created section will be visible near the middle of the sheet. Switch to the Home tab and left-click on the Attach Tools icon in the primary group. The References dialog will open. Find the section -B reference and select it. Left-click on the Move Reference tool. Snap to and left-click on the pond bottom line. Now snap to and left-click on the pond bottom line in the section B- reference. The two sections should align to form a single pond cross-section. Close the References dialog box. Switch back to the Multi-Model view and the Home tab. Exercise 2.3, Placing Special Details. Switch to the default 3D Views view group. Left-click on the View Attributes drop-down and verify the display style is set to Illustration Ignore Lighting. On the Home tab, in the primary group, left-click on the Level Display tool. The Level Display dialog will open. Select the PDP LRD01.dgn file in the list. Turn off all levels and close the dialog box. Zoom in to the pond control structure. Left-click and hold on the View Rotation button in the View control bar. Select Rotate View from the list. Left-click on the white View Rotation cross and move it to the lower right corner of the top of the structure. Once it is snapped to the lower right corner of the structure, left-click to accept the new location. Move the cursor off the structure to the upper right and left-click to begin rotation. Bring the cursor across the view to the left until the pipe is at a somewhere near 45-degree angle to the left of the structure and left-click to accept the rotation. Move the cursor to the lower right side of the screen and left-click to begin rotation. Move the cursor up the screen until the back edge of the slab disappears behind the top of the structure, and then left-click, then right-click to accept the rotation and exit the tool. Left-click on the Window Area tool in the View control bar. Now place a window around the structure and zoom in on it. Right-click to exit the View tool. Switch to the Drawing Production tab, and in the Clip group, left-click on the Clip Volume icon. The Create Clip Volume dialog will appear. Left-click on the Apply Clip Volume by 2 points tool. The Display Clip Element checkbox should not be checked. Left-click to the upper right of the structure and drag down and to the left just beyond the structure. Left-click to accept the clip volume. Left-click on the Create Named Boundary from Clip Volume tool and enter Special Detail in the Name field. Left-click in the lower right corner of the Saved Views group to open the Saved Views dialog box. On the Saved Views dialog, left-click on the Create Saved View icon in the upper left of the dialog box. On the Create Saved Views dialog, set the Method drop-down to From View, the View Type drop-down to General, and the Name field to Special Detail, and the Description field to Pond Control Structure. Left-click on the Clip Volume drop-down and choose Special Detail from the list. Hover near the structure in the view and left-click to accept the clip. Close the dialog and switch to the Pond 1 Sheet Views view group. Switch to the Home tab and left-click on the Attach Tools icon to open the References dialog box. Left-click on the Attach References icon in the upper left corner of the dialog. This will open the Attach References dialog. Select the PDP LRD01.dgn file from the list. Left-click Open. On the References Attachment Properties for PDP LRD01.dgn dialog box, set the Model drop-down to Default 3D, the Logical Name field to Special Detail, and the Description field to Saved View Attachment. In the Orientation List box, under Saved Views, select Special Detail from the list. The Detail Scale drop-down should be set to 3/8 of an inch equals 1 foot, which will set the Scale field to 1 and 32. Turn on Live Nesting with a nesting depth of 1. Set the Synchronize View drop-down to All Properties, and the Name field to Special Detail. Now left-click on the OK button to begin to place the reference. Place the reference in the upper right corner of the sheet. Close the References dialog. Switch the view group to the Multi-Model View group. Exercise 2.4, Cutting Control Structure Sections. In View 1, use Window Area to zoom in close to structure S108. Left-click on the Rotate View button in the View control bar. On the Rotate View dialog, choose the 2 points method. Snap to and left-click on the end point of the red dashed line inside the structure. Snap to and left-click on the midpoint of the structure wall to the lower left. Right-click in the Open to exit the rotation tool. Switch to the Drawing Workflow. And on the Home tab, in the Attributes group, left-click on the Level drop-down and choose Pattern Lines 1 underbar DP from the list. Now, in the Placement group, left-click on the Place Line icon and snap to the end of the red dashed line inside the structure. Switch to the Drawing Aids tab, and in the AccuDraw group, left-click on the Set Origin icon. Now drag the cursor to the left and hit the Enter key to lock the AccuDraw axis to horizontal movement. Type 8 on the keyboard and left-click to start drawing the first pattern line. Move the cursor to the right of the structure and hit the Enter key to lock the AccuDraw axis to the horizontal again. Type 16 and left-click, then right-click to complete the first pattern line. Snap to the end of the red dashed line inside the structure. Left-click on the Set Origin icon again and move the cursor up the screen. Hit Enter on the keyboard to lock the AccuDraw axis to vertical and type 6. Left-click to start the second pattern line. Move down the screen past the structure and hit the Enter key to lock the AccuDraw axis to the vertical. Type 12 on the keyboard and left-click, then right-click to complete the second pattern line. Switch back to the Open Roads Modeling workflow and the Drawing Production tab. In the Name Boundaries group, left-click on the Named Boundary drop-down and choose the Place Name Boundary tool. The Place Name Boundary dialog appears. Left-click on the Civil Cross-Section 2 Points tool, then left-click on the horizontal pattern line. In the dialog, set the drawing seed to 11 by 17 cross-section detail. The name field to section C-C and the description field to control structure section. The vertical exaggeration should be set to 1. The top and bottom clearance check boxes should be checked with the field values set to 5. Elevation datum spacing field should be set to 2. No check in the backward facing checkbox. Checks in both the Create Drawing and Show Dialog check boxes. Snap to and left-click on the left end of the horizontal pattern line. Snap to and left-click on the right end of the horizontal pattern line. Left-click in the Open and the Create Drawing dialog will appear. On the Create Drawing dialog, set the name field to section C-C. Set the Sheets drop-down to Pond 1 sheet and the detail scale to 3/8 of an inch equals a foot. Left-click on the OK button to create the drawing. The Pond sheet view will open, and the new section will be near the center of the sheet. Switch to the Home tab and use the Attach Tools icon to open the References dialog box. Select the section C-C model and left-click on the Move References button to begin moving the new section. Left-click in the center of the new section and move it to the upper right corner of the sheet just below the special detail. Right-click to end the command. Switch to the section C-C Views View Group. On the References dialog, under the Presentation column, left-click on the entry for the section CC reference. On the References Presentation dialog, choose the display style of wireframe and left-click on the OK button. Close the References dialog box and switch back to the Multi-Model view. Switch back to the Drawing Production tab. In the Name Boundaries group, left-click on the Name Boundary drop-down and choose the Place Name Boundary tool. The Place Name Boundary dialog appears. Left-click on the Civil Cross-Section 2 Points tool, then left-click on the Vertical Pattern line. In the dialog, set the drawing seed to 1117 cross-section detail, the name field to section DD. All of the other checkboxes and fields should be set correctly from the previous use of this tool. Snap to and left-click on the upper end of the vertical pattern line. Snap to and left-click on the lower end of the vertical pattern line. Left-click in the Open and the Create Drawing dialog will open. On the Create Drawing dialog, set the name field to section D-D. Set the Sheets drop-down to Pond 1 Sheet. And the Detail Scale and Annotation Scale to 3/8 of an inch equals a foot. Left-click on the OK button to create the drawing. The Pond Sheet view will open and the new section will be near the center of the sheet. Switch to the Home tab and use the Attach Tools icon to open the References dialog box. Select the section D-D model and left-click on the Move Reference button to begin moving the new section. Left-click in the center of the new section and move it next to section CC. Switch to the section DD Views view group. On the References dialog, under the Presentation column, left-click on the entry for the section D-D reference. On the Reference Presentation dialog, choose a display style of wireframe and left-click on the OK button. Close the References dialog box and switch back to the Multi-Model Views view group. Exercise 2.5 Control Structure Form. Open the Pond 1 Sheet Views view group. Switch to the FDOT tab, and in the Actions group, left-click on the Linked Data Manager tool. This will bring up the FDOT Linked Data Manager dialog. Left-click on the Create New Link button in the upper left corner of the dialog. On the Link Information dialog, left-click on the Create New from Template button. This will open the Select FDOT Template dialog. Left-click on the drop-down and choose miscellaneous boxes from the list. Select Stormwater Facility Control Structure from the list of templates and left-click on the OK button to save the newly created file to the drainage folder of the current project. Type Pond 1 Stormwater Facility Control Structure form in the description and set the Worksheet drop-down to Sheet 1. Under Graphics Settings, choose the FDOT radio button and set the drop-down to Standard. Check the Update Graphics on File Open checkbox, and the rest of the checkboxes should not be checked. Left-click on the OK button to begin the placement of the control structure form. It will take some time for the program to create the new blank Excel file and the placement process to begin, so be patient. When the process of placement begins, there will be a form attached to the cursor. Move the cursor so that the form is below the two structure sections placed previously. Left-click to place the form. Notice in the FDOT Link Data Manager dialog that the form now appears in the list area of the dialog. Left-click on the entry and then right-click on the entry to open the Link Data Manager menu. Select Open Source from the list to open the new blank form in Excel for editing. For this example, there is a form that has already been filled out in the drainage folder. Close the blank form and exit Excel. Using Windows File Explorer, navigate to this project folder and into the drainage folder. There should be two Excel files in this folder. One will be the new file just created, stormwater underbar facility underbar control underbar structure.xlsx, and an example file that was supplied with the dataset, stormwater underbar facility underbar control underbar structure underbar example.xls. Delete the new file and rename the example file to stormwater underbar facility underbar control underbar structure.xlsx. Close Windows Explorer. Now go back to the FDOT Link Data Manager dialog and left-click on the entry in the list and right-click to bring up the menu. Select Update Now from the menu and the form will update to the new filled-out example form. Anytime changes are made to a form, it can be updated this way in the FDOT Link Data Manager. Thank you for watching Pond Design and Plans Production Chapter 2. Have a nice day.